Confucianism and legalism were not the only models vying for influence in the later Zhou period. There were others, and these contributed to the diversity of ideas collectively known as the 100 Schools of Thought, reflecting the cultural dynamism of this tumultuous age. Among the most prominent was Daoism, which we explore in the writings of Lao Tzu, purportedly in the 6th century BCE, and Zhuangzi, living in the 4th and early 3rd century BCE during the Warring States period. To Lao Tzu is attributed the Tao Te Ching, the classic of the way and its power. A remarkable, slim volume. It's composed of only 5,000 Chinese characters and 81 brief chapters, and this remains one of the world's treasured texts. The Tao Te Ching is pithy and poetic, whereas the work of Master Zhuang, which bears his name, is a larger prose work containing thought-provoking and often humorous stories. There are allegories, conversations, there's arguments against rival viewpoints. From the Taoist perspective, Confucians and legalists have it all wrong, believing that they comprehend all things when they have a grasp on a mere scrap, only a tiny aspect of reality. In truth, the universe is vast. Just look up at the moon and the stars, look at the mountains. But the Confucians and legalists arrogantly assert that they can fix the world. Taoists note that the realm of politics intervenes, mandates, and interferes with human society and makes even more of a mess of things. As much as it might try, no governing authority can ever change human nature. So the best approach, then, would be not to interfere. Non-governing would be the best form of governing, reflecting the Taoist notion of Wu Wei, of actionless acting, doing without doing, a dramatic difference from the rival schools of thought. So what then is to be our guide? Well, not law, not ritual, only the Tao, which is eternal reality, the source of all, which runs through all, while remaining even ever beyond our grasp, beyond comprehension, beyond articulation. The Tao Te Ching begins. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The Tao is called the Great Mother, empty yet inexhaustible. It gives birth to infinite worlds. The Tao is infinite, eternal. And we see the Tao expressed in the natural order, in nature itself, which is the preferred guide. And in nature, we see the principle of change working through all things. And that principle is embodied in this symbol, where we see the yin, that's the dark, the soft and the yielding, the cool, the wet, the receptive, the passive. And we can contrast that with the yang, the light side. That's the active, the hard, the hot, dry, aggressive. And with both, there is harmony. One's not good and the other evil, for you can't have one without the other. And change is a constant. And this is the way of nature. This is the way of life itself. Now, note how the Taoists point to nature and not to culture as guide, as expressed in the rituals and the texts which were admired by the Confucians. The Confucian way emphasized fulfilling the correct relationships with others, with parents and friends and ruler, elders and children, as the path to the ideal life, while Taoists express that relationship in accordance with the natural world as the optimum path. And this requires an element of unlearning, of emptying one's mind, of meditative reflection. The Tao Te Ching continues, "Those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. Close your mouth, block your senses, blunt your sharpness, untie your knots, soften your glare, settle your dust. This is primal identity. And elsewhere, empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your heart be at peace. Watch the turmoil of beings, but contemplate their return. Each separate being in the universe returns to the common source. Returning to the source is serenity. Now, if returning to the source is serenity, how should we mark or commemorate the death of our loved ones? According to Confucian etiquette, this would require prolonged mourning rituals affecting what we wear, what we eat, and how we interact with others. Now contrast this with Zhuangzi's reaction to the death of his wife. When a friend visited with condolences, he was startled to find Zhuangzi sitting on a tub singing. Zhuangzi explained that when his wife died, he did in fact grieve, as we would all expect. But then he began reflecting on her life, and then reflected on the time before she was born, and then the time before she had a body or a spirit. That is, he reflected on the reality of change. She was not, then she was, and now she is not. As summer turns to fall, to winter, and then spring, this is the way. Why lament the natural order of the universe? We live right when we live in accordance with it. And so, the Taoists walked a different path, using a different guide, with different motivations. Consider when Zhuangzi received an envoy from a ruler offering him a high government position. Zhuangzi replied, "Haven't you ever heard about the ox offered in the official sacrifice? He is generously fed for years and dressed in the finest embroidered fabrics so that he may one day be led into the great temple for slaughter. When that day comes, though he may wish that he were just a little orphan piglet instead, it is too late. So scram, you. I'd rather enjoy myself wallowing in the filth than let myself be controlled by some head of state. I'd rather remain without official position to the end of my days, enjoying myself whichever way I wish." While Daoism may seem an ideal guide for hermits, and Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi epitomized that image, this worldview was also applied much more broadly, as you'll read in the sections about governing society. Taoist ideas are also evident in the famed military treatise Sun Tzu's Art of War, a fitting text for the warring states period. Here you'll find guidance for winning without fighting, and think of that principle of Wu Wei, in strategies for concealing your full power, using the flow of the land, and recognizing war as change. Explore in the Taoist texts their views on how best to live, contrasting this with the views of its sibling traditions, Confucianism and legalism, knowing that all three would long remain influential. Finally, contrast these with still other texts and approaches found in the Course.